But I would say this, when you talk about robbing your life, see, my thing I've always wanted to say to people, I've always wanted to stand up in the middle of a bad movie in a theater and say, aren't your lives worth more for 2 hours than even say $7 in New York City? $3.50 an hour. That's below the minimum wage, the new minimum wage. I mean, get out and live.
Go stand in the lobby and talk.
I give this movie 5 phooeys.
You haven't even seen it yet!
Whoa, did someone get the license number of that movie?
In my opinion, the whole world has gone mad. Wacko. And if we ever needed a movie like this, we certainly need it now. Stanley Kramer's It's a Mad, 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 Mad World. The epic comedy to end all comedies. Yeah, you have some from the 1980s and 1990s that still make us laugh, but this 1963 classic is king to all of them. The first couple of minutes set the tone perfectly with an animated opening credits that show the world being literally tossed around, toyed with, and even blown up. The manic merry-go-round music by Ernest Gold adds a nice touch of what to expect. This might as well be one of the best opening credits I've ever seen. It's fun, playful, and demented at the same time. Fun fact, Bill Mendez is one of the animators who helped on this, who would later work on a ton of animated Peanuts specials.
This time I'm gonna kick that football clear to the moon!
Considering the way the world tends to treat Charlie Brown, talk about ironic. After that, the movie begins on a literal bang with a car crash. Normally we would get set up and an idea of who our main characters are, but here, this movie grabs our attention as well as the leads.
He just went sailing out there.
It was terrible. I mean, just terrible. We must have been doing over 80.
Now that is how you start a movie. Anyway, 5 witnesses learn from the dying driver, played by Jimmy Durante in his final film role, that he's a crook on the lam that buried $350,000 in Santa Rosita Beach and decides to give it to him as he kicks the bucket. Of course, I do give credit for how the characters try to be reasonable with each other. They debate about how to split up the dough, but it doesn't quite work.
But no matter how you figure it out, I still don't get as much as anybody else.
There's only one way to figure it, and that is every man, including the old bag, for himself.
And instead, it turns into a free-for-all. From there, it becomes a mad dash for cash, and everything you know that goes wrong does. They make friends, create some enemies, and even create a lot of damage in the process. Anything is possible, and you can't help but enjoy the chaos that snowballs slowly into destruction on a larger scale. The casting is pretty solid, and you don't quite know who to root for. Everyone has a given reason for going after the buried money, and you're kind of curious to see who's going to win. There's J. Russell Finch, played by Milton Berle, who tries to be the more sensible, yet the stress of his own family is eventually what does him in. He's sandwiched between his well-mannered and quiet wife Emma Line, played by Dorothy Provine, and her loudmouth mother, Miss Marcus, played by Ethel Merman. And can you really blame him?
I'm only thinking of Russell's condition.
You mean his financial condition, because that's the only condition that he has.
Yeah, but...
Emmeline, do you know exactly why your husband had a nervous breakdown?
Yeah, but...
It's because he has sunk $40,000, including $15,000 of my money, into a company that makes seaweed for people to eat.
Yeah, but...
Yeah, but what?
Well, most people like it, and I like it, and I'm working hard and trying to keep the cost down.
Yeah, you were working hard trying to keep the cost down the day that you ran out of your office and stood in the street screaming.
Mother!
Oh, Emmeline, shut up!
Mother.
And you too!
Speaking of which, Miss Marcus has to be Ethel Merman's most memorable role to date. Yeah, she's annoying, but it makes her comeuppance all the more rewarding when something bad happens to her.
Nobody's gonna get me up in the air!
Then there's Melville Crump and his wife Monica, played by the great Sid Caesar and Eddie Adams. A couple on their second honeymoon who try to take some charge of the whole situation. I even like how Melville at first doesn't seem to be in it for the money, but just to prove his own will as a leader to the group. He tries to be the brains of how to split the fortune up, but when that doesn't work, it turns into a contest to him for who is smarter.
I wanted to be a reasonable guy, you know, give reasonable shares. Now, they wanted every man for himself. Well, now I'm going to show them what kind of a man they're dealing with.
Though, 'tis a shame he can't quite figure out what to do when he and his wife get locked in the basement of a hardware store. I also enjoy the chemistry between Sid and Eddie. The way they talk and bounce off each other feels like a legit married couple.
Don't fly in this old... Now listen to it. Just look at how it's shuddering.
This is a plane that's really built. I mean, you know, look, when was this plane built? Tell me that. 1916. 1916. 1916.
Melville believes he knows how to fix the solution, but his wife thinks otherwise and tends to be more sensible.
Melville, don't you go in there or you'll be killed. You'll be blown to bits.
Monica, for heaven's sake, I just want to go in there to take a look. Why can't you have a little confidence in me?
My favorite of the treasure hunting group has to be Ding and Benji, played by Mickey Rooney and Buddy Hackett. Two friends on the way to Las Vegas who instead decide to gamble big with the money. Think about it. You have a well-known child actor and a well-known comedian both playing to their strengths.
I know where it is. It's under a big W. That's what he said. It's under a big W. Like a windmill or a waterfall or something like that.
I hope it's not under a waterfall.
Ironic as they both end up in some well-known Disney movies, and here they are palling off each other. The comedic timing works really well within these two, especially when they try to scheme their way into getting a drunk pilot, played by Mr. Magoo, to fly him to Santa Rosita.
She's dying, and, well, we're up here, and, well, she'd kind of like to have us be with her when she goes.
Otherwise, she won't go. Oh, she'll go!
And the stakes raise even further when they accidentally knock the guy out when they're up in the air and have no choice but to take control of the plane and land that thing in their hands. It takes a moment that could play off as being terrifying in real life, but the over-exaggerated nature of the scene really plays it for laughs.
The stick that you're holding there, that is, I assume that, men, are you holding that stick? Is somebody holding that stick? Over.
Am I? I don't want it! I tell you, put him on. He said the fellow that was flying should be talking on this thing. What am I supposed to do? Everything? You want me to fly the airplane? You want me to work the radio? What are you, the hostess?
You feel genuine suspense and pure laughs from just how overbloated the situation becomes. Furniture moving man Lenny Pike is the underdog you feel sympathy for. Jonathan Winters does a great job playing up the innocent factor in this gentle giant. He means well and is an honest guy, but cross him and he doesn't hold back. It makes you wonder how a sweet guy could have a violent turn, but it's built up right. The reasons for his frustrations are identifiable, and it makes it all the more rewarding when he doesn't hold back his anger. In one of the most iconic scenes, two gas station attendants are tricked into thinking he's a lunatic, and Pike gets treated as such. With no other choice, Pike ends up losing his senses and kicks the tar out of him. Actually, no, I take that back. He doesn't just toss them around. He ends up destroying their station to the point there's nothing left. It's amazing to see how one guy can do so much damage in a short amount of time. He levels that building straight to the ground. Also, I gotta bring up the fact that the two gas station attendants are played by Arnold Stang and Marvin Kaplan. That's right. Top Cat and Choo Choo are trying to manhandle a crazy Grandpa Smurf. Really try to make sense of that.
Guys, you're getting out of line. I'm not kidding. I've had all I can take. I win. We're gonna have to kill him.
Along the way, some of them run into strangers who try to be of some help or end up being in the run for the money. Terry Thomas is a vacationing Englishman who gets a lot of laughs when he tries to help Finch and his family. At first, he carries a polite and calm personality, but the events of the situation and the annoyance of Finch's folks cause him to take a turn and really unleash his true feelings.
Now, I earnestly recommend that we forget your good ladies and press on with all possible dispatch.
All right, we'll press on with all possible dispatch.
And I don't really think that personal rancor is going to help the situation, if I may say so.
Originally, Peter Sellers was set for the role, but he turned out to be too expensive to get. Probably for the best, given it's funny to see Thomas's upbeat personality slowly deteriorate when things get frustrating.
I must say, if I had the grievous misfortune to be a citizen of this benighted country, I should be the most hesitant in offering any criticism whatever of any other.
Wait a minute, are you knocking this country? Are you saying something against America?
As far as I can see, American men have been totally emasculated. They're like slaves. They die like flies from coronary thrombosis, while their women sit under hair dryers, eating chocolates, and arranging for every second Tuesday to be some sort of Mother's Day. I'll wager you anything you like. If American women stopped wearing brassieres, your whole national economy would collapse overnight.
There's also Phil Silvers as Otto Meyer, who literally cheats his way into the chase. This is the trickster, the con man, the guy who will do anything he can to claim the money before anyone else does. Here we have the closest element this flick has to a villain, and he fits the bill. And everything that happens to him feels greatly rewarding, given the way he tries to lie and cheat his way around. In one of the most iconic moments, he tries to get a boy's help for road directions, but he ends up driving into a river instead.
It's too deep! It's too deep, you little rat fink! Why didn't you tell me it was deep? Don't stand there, get somebody! This is no place for a convertible!
It feels so satisfying seeing the grifter get his just desserts. And just when you think you've seen it all, there's Miss Marcus's son Sylvester, played by Dick Shawn. You might remember him better as Snow Miser from The Year Without a Santa Claus, and the hippie who plays stage Hitler in Mel Brooks' The Producers.
1 and 1 is 2. 2 and 2 is 4. I feel so bad because I'm losing the war.
In my opinion, he's the looniest of the batch, and Dick Shawn is great at playing characters like this. In his first introduction, you really don't know what to make of him. He dances to this Baskin-Robbins jingle with some random girl who we can only guess is his girlfriend. But in other cuts of the movie, we find out she's married to someone and is having an affair with Sylvester. This is one wild card who appears wacky at first. That is, if you don't count the Lawrence Welk album that labels him as a pure square in the background. That is a tiny clue that shows deep down, he is a pure mama's boy for a character who is posing as something cool. However, if you mess with his mother, he loses it big time and will do whatever it takes to fight back.
When I'm gonna nail. I'm getting bugged now. Whoa, man.
Move over, Norman Bates. This is one son you don't want to cross. The one character who tries to anchor everything together is Captain Culpepper, played by Spencer Tracy. He monitors everything that happens and tries to do things by the book. Apparently the hidden money is linked to a case that he's trying to solve for a long time before his retirement.
The Smiler-Grogan case is solved.
The hell is the Smiler-Grogan case?
The tuna factory robbery. The case I've been talking about for the last 15 years.
You think being a policeman, he'd be the most reasonable, but alas, this guy celebrates too early and it causes more problems. Everything falls apart fast. His own family starts a bunch of drama, he gets screwed by his own job, and it only tests the limits of his tolerance at the very edge. Tracy does a great job showing how moral Culpepper is, but when things go south, you start to wonder if he'll go after the money or stick to his morals. He keeps you guessing until the very end, but you have this sneaking suspicion he'll take a chance. The movie was directed by Stanley Kramer, which was major for someone at the time who directed a lot of dramas with deep messages.
I was known as the man with the message, the serious filmmaker, and I thought, I'll make a comedy and show him. That's really the birth of it. The birth of it in something as tawdry as that. The fact that I wanted to show everybody I could do a comedy.
This is the equivalency of when Martin Scorsese made the family-friendly Hugo after directing a lot of R-rated movies under his belt. Kramer wanted to do something different for a change, and I think he succeeded with this comedy. You have a random collection of characters who are given the ultimate chance of a lifetime, but their own greed and egos get in the way. You still have a moral in there, but it comes in at the right time as opposed to be bludgeoned over the head with throughout the whole venture. And for a movie filmed in Ultra Panavision widescreen, it looks beautiful. Considering the fact that this was projected on Cinerama screens, it must have been great back then, seeing those curvy screens just swallow you up into the surroundings and the characters and their dilemma. There were a couple of movies, not too many, that were filmed with the 3-camera process, but this was the first of its kind, supposedly, that was filmed in a flat format with only one camera. Even if you're not seeing it on those kind of screens, it's still effective at home too. Every frame does not have a single piece of wasted space. It's filled with many visual jokes and looks grand in scale. My favorite image is when they dig up the money and everyone pops into frame, drooling over the prize to which they're so close to having. I love this image so much that I tried to replicate it for the 100 episode of Vaulting. And let me tell you, it's not easy trying to get everyone's head into frame when you're laying flat down on a coffee table that's hurting your back.
All right, that was good. There's just one small problem. Dan's head wasn't in the shot.
Find a way of jolting his memory and prove that it is him. Ask him a simple movie title or something. No.
Hold it!
Kramer really tried to pack this movie with many well-known comedic performances, at least those who were available. Even sneaks in one or two people from the silent era who you might not know, but it's kind of refreshing to see that they were still around when movies like these are being made. Even if they appear for a brief cameo or short scene, they still leave their mark. Some of them don't even have a line or two, they just show up, and their own appearance can be a pure delight. Even if you're not familiar with them, you still get a good chuckle. You don't focus on who the person is, but how they matter to the moment. There's one scene during the airplane sequence where a bunch of firefighters show up, and who happens to appear? Now that is how you do a cameo right. And I can't praise the stunt work enough. As mentioned, there is a lot that happens. It's the kind of movie where anything goes, and one stunt tries to top another, building up to the mother of all endings, that makes you wonder just how we got to this point where everything is going so wrong. Cars crash into each other, buildings get torn down, people fight each other, there's chases, fireworks explode, and that's just scraping the surface. It would be unfair to break down every scene and explain why these moments matter to the movie. This is something you have to see on your own, as it would be wrong to ruin the good moments for newcomers to show why this is a pure classic. Yeah, film critics and movie teachers these days shove Citizen Kane down your throat and go on about how Rosebud is an important theme about the loss of innocence, or how this presents the way the news media works these days. But this is a movie where the plot turns and stunts are so crucial that I don't want to ruin it for newcomers. It's definitely worth a watch. Speaking of which, one should note of the different versions that exist of this movie. When Mad World debuted in Cinerama screens in 1963, it ran for 3 hours and 12 minutes. The studio United Artists trimmed it down against Stanley Kramer's wishes to 2 hours and 43 minutes for extra showtimes during its general release. Film enthusiasts will be pleased to know that over time, some of the missing footage has surfaced and been restored to different versions of the film. In 1991, a version was released with some added scenes that were rediscovered in a warehouse slated for demolition. However, the restoration job was not the best, and it was done as a patchwork job without pure care. They had no involvement for Stanley Kramer, and they just added the footage in there without any consideration of really cleaning it up and making it look good. There was even some small bits here and there that weren't intended to be in the original Roadshow cut in the first place. Thankfully, film preservationist Robert A. Harris was able to supervise the reconstruction of the Roadshow cut to the best of his ability, clocking in at 3 hours and 17 minutes. It's a noble attempt, but sadly, most of the restored material was not in the best shape when they were discovered. True, nobody back then was thinking ahead on what home video would be like in the future, and that is to be respected and reflected here. I do praise Harris for his attempt on trying to restore the lost material that was deteriorating to the point the color was literally fading. There were even moments when he had to resort to using stills and audio for footage that no longer exists, or moments when tiny pieces of the soundtrack could not be located. The biggest highlight that makes this cut worth seeing, though, is the famous police radio calls that take place during intermission. What was supposed to happen was that moviegoers would go out into the lobby and hear news of the ongoing events during the film break. Imagine you're buying a candy bar or going to the bathroom, and you hear this over specially hidden speakers.
Central to all units. Central to all units. Report all units. Over.
389 Daisy to Central. The plane's still in the air, but they just buzzed the state highway and caused a 4-car smash-up. Over.
427 Echo to Central. The man Myers still sitting on a rock in the middle of the creek. He's shouting at the kid, but the kid's been gone for 20 minutes. Over.
It was very clever of them to keep the audience up to speed so they would know what to expect at the start of Act 2. It's a neat gimmick, and it's something I wish they had kept in for the general release cut in some shape or form. at least for the home video version. Fun fact, these radio calls would have played in the movie theater restrooms, but due to complaints and confusion of hearing male voices in the ladies' toilets, they were removed. This particular reconstruction was presented on a special Criterion release that does make this DVD Blu-ray set worth owning. However, I only view this as a neat bonus at best. I still recommend for newcomers and enthusiasts to stick with the general release cut. It flows better, gets to the point quicker, and doesn't stop to take a breath. Outside of the intermission place radio calls, you're not missing a whole lot with the roadshow cut. Of course, it's no secret many others try to duplicate and copy this gem given how successful it was. Some tried to clone the grand quality, while others are more focused on the gimmick as opposed to what made Mad World special. Scavenger Hunt and Million Dollar Mystery were good attempts, but they missed the point, both suffering from lack of character depth and focus. The only two movies I can think of that came the closest to being nearly on par with Mad World is Blake Edwards' The Great Race and the Zucker Brothers' modern take with Rat Race. They really tried to emulate the ensemble cast and grand scale quality, but couldn't quite match the tight-knit plot Mad World had. Maybe someday I will talk about these two in greater detail, as I don't believe they are bad movies. Far from it, they're enjoyable. But the flaws they carry completely hinder how near-perfect Mad World is in comparison. Even later on, it's no surprise Mad World would end up being parodied and even given some homage. One of the two examples I can think of is the Simpsons episode Home of the Vigilante, where a cat burglar sends the Springfield residents on the chase at the end of the episode. They even emulate scenes from the movie along with some Simpson look-alike designs of the famous treasure hunters.
What's the matter with you, kid? You told me the stream was shallow. Why, you... I'm kidding with you.
The second is an episode of Beetlejuice. This one manages to do the impossible by paying homage to not only Mad World, but also King Kong.
We already did a show about a giant ape. Thing Thong, remember?
Babes, this is Bing Bong! It's completely different.
Yeah.
A pirate named Captain Kidder tells the Needleworld residents the existence of a giant singing and dancing ape that everyone gets excited over and has their own means to exploit it. They even do a similar midpoint montage, much like in the movie, even if done different. The episode ends with the whole thing turning out to be a prank, much to everybody's dismay.
That's been fun!
We've been conned!
The fact that the cartoon like Beetlejuice was able to parody a monster movie, but execute in the style of that Stanley Kramer directed comedy, still blows my mind. And the fact they're able to take a near 3-hour movie and condense it down to a little less than 24 minutes shows what creativity is being missed in today's cartoons. At this point, I had to see Bluey try something like this. In conclusion, it's a mad world, maybe a long movie and a tad dated in spots, but the themes of greed corrupting the simple-minded and its grand scale of stunt work make this a timeless classic. Almost every special effect and stunt is performed in camera, everyone is committed, and you find yourself engaged in every step of the way. It is not only one of the best comedies ever made, but a personal favorite I love to turn to, and it still keeps me laughing no matter how many times I see it. It's an epic comedy that truly shows just how mad this world can really be. This is more than a movie you should see. This is one you deserve to own.
They're nuts! Have a ball! Live it up! Only fools give it up. You sure be on board, but you sure. So be a happy fellow. Be a clown boy, punch mellow. Get off the shelf and enjoy yourself. It's a mad. It's a mad.
Well, if that's the way you're gonna play it, I'll take one for being a Broadway star, one for being a woman,
And one for being a man.
No, this is naughty. You're all... What are you...
Clouseau, Inspector Clouseau, alias Peter Sellers. And now we've got him coming and going. The Pink Panther. They cheer him, they adore him, and we have him coming and going in The Pink Panther